Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show. Hello. How's it going? Guerilla Sports Off Ice. What is it, Megan? Tuesday?
Oh, feels like Friday. It's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday, but it does feel a little odd. Tuesday, but Megan, it's the start of the NHL regular season.
That's what I'm saying.
We're
back.
Start of the NHL regular season. Actually, we're about less than an hour from the first puck drop. This is what we were complaining about last week. The season technically has already started. But no, it hasn't. The NHL did a terrible job of letting everyone know that it was starting last week in Prague.
Because it was so exclusive. Now everyone's starting.
St. Louis, Seattle coming up here in an hour, which is, I'm not complaining. I'm just going to leave here and go home and watch. But odd 2:30 start time. Have you heard anything about why they're doing this?
No, I don't.
Everyone in the media room today was equally confused about, seems like it's just a YOLO 2:30 start time. So we got that. We got Chicago and Utah. And then we do also have the banner going up in Florida as Boston's coming in there. But Megan, we got Chris MacFarland this morning. We got to speak with the Avs GM. So I think we are going to play that whole interview. Just killed 3 penalties in a row, including 4 minutes of 5-on-3. Ready for hockey. What? That game hasn't already started, has it? Doesn't matter. We're going to play that full Chris MacFarland interview. It is about 18 minutes, but Megan, I do feel like there was a lot more substance to this Chris MacFarland presser than we normally get. He is very, very good at saying nothing while saying a lot of words.
But you're right. He's not going to say anything he doesn't mean and doesn't want you to know.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to let something slip. But I still think there are things that as media we can find value in that he intended for us to know, but it's still valuable to know.
It's still valuable for us to know. Again, we're gonna unpack a lot of it after we listen. Is there anything that you think folks should be listening for as we get set to roll this?
No. Like experience it raw.
Experience it raw. Okay. My only thing I'll say is I do feel like this is the most of an update we've gotten on Val Nichushkin yet.
I think it also, like, in addition to an update, it clarifies things from the past, in my opinion, in more certain terms.
Yep. Okay, perfect. There's a comment that just came in and said, need a Mikko contract announced during the show. This is what we were all speculating in the media room. We were all saying that what we actually thought was going to happen was they were going to come up and announce Mikko and then do the CMAC presser just to throw everyone kind of off, drop some bombshell news right before. They didn't do that. So now what we're all predicting is they're waiting for all the pods and all the articles to get done for today. Now I'm going to start heading towards Vegas, and then they're going to push something out. But yeah, let's go ahead and we're going to run Chris MacFarland here. So this is Chris MacFarland, GM of the Colorado Avalanche. His full preseason presser from today.
Make smart decisions, both for the short term and the long term. So,
Chris, I guess just season gets going tomorrow. We talked to Mikko. He was saying that when the contract gets done, when it gets done. I guess how quickly are you guys looking to get this resolved and not want it to go too far into the season?
no concern about it going into the season. These are not easy deals to do. There's the player obviously has the UFA right to go, and the club has to make smart decisions, both for the short term and the long term. So we're not going to comment, on it daily or weekly. When there's news like OCs came out of the, dropped out of the sky and got done. We got a few other UFAs, I think, as well. So Well, I can assure you of one thing. My phone's always on, and I know, Miko's representation's phone's always on. So, that's as much as I can say on it.
On media day, Jared mentioned that you guys were going to request some more information on Val's situation as he's in the program. Was there any update on what that might be?
Yep, Val's doing well. First and foremost, he's all the reports back from the league. The program doctors is nothing but positive, which is obviously the most important thing. Second of all, I've been in touch with the league as well. We're still kind of, working through the reintegration sort of process. This is my first time through this stage, but I believe we'll get to a point where the player is traveling back to Denver later this month, and how the gym and the skates and what he can do, what he can't do is still got to be sorted out, and then at some point in November he'll be joining practice, and then when he's officially ready to roll will depend on a lot of things we don't know, his conditioning level being one of them. But we expect to see the player here later this month.
I feel like probably all of us got some questions from fans and people just about what was going on with him this summer. I know the player assistance program is, we're not supposed to know what's going on maybe by design, but just was the organization happy with how it went over the summer when he's doing his thing?
Yeah, to be honest, our involvement in it is very little. The players, the league program is designed to come up with the place and the spot that's going to be most conducive to help the player. When I've communicated with the doctors, they always get back to me, so they're happy with where he's at. Of course, they've been happy with where he's at, the previous 2 times as well. So, we just hope for the best for the player and that he's in a good spot, and that, when he comes back, he's healthy. That's first and foremost. But as far as I went to see Val the first 2 times where he was, and this time, I did not go this summer, but we're told he's very happy with the program, both the player and the league doctors. So fingers crossed.
He did a series of videos that were published over the summer. They were before what happened during the Dallas series, but he did address the Seattle situation in a way that no one really has. There was one specific thing in there where he says, "I was going to come back after the first round."
I'm not commenting on that.
We've asked the team what he would need to do to rebuild trust, but I was curious what you would need to see or hear from the Juice that would satisfy you.
I'm satisfied. I've talked with Val. I think this is just me. The players are the players. Their family dynamic is their family dynamic. I think every single person in that locker room, whether it's players, the coaching staff, trainers, equipment, ownership, Joe, all of us, it sounds like a broken record. We want Val healthy. That's first and foremost, as to be a functional human being. I think, we all know people that struggle with addictions and these sort of things, and they're tough situations. I think the players, all they want to know is that Val's healthy and that he understands the hurt that they went through, especially at playoff time. I think how they do that is something I'm certainly not going to comment on. I think that's personal in the room. But I can tell you this, there's not one single player that's not going to welcome back Val with open arms.
Just to clarify, last time he was in the program, there was I remember we were talking to Jared Bednar about he was cleared to practice, and we were asking when will he be cleared to play, or when will he play, and he said that he needs to get clearance. Are you guys still waiting on information on if November 13th is a practice or a game?
We're still a long ways away, right, from the 6 month. We're just going to figure out when can he join the team, what's his fitness level. The last thing we'll want, assuming everything is good, is for him to come back, play too soon, and pull a groin, right? That would be disaster for everybody. So there's a lot of things that we have to glean. I think first and foremost is what does it look like for him when he comes back here? How does his program look now that he's back in Denver? How can we help? What can he do in the gym? Is it separate from everybody? When can he officially join practice and reintegrate and all that stuff? That is all stuff that over the next 3-4 weeks that we'll still have to pin down.
Go ahead.
Just our annual Gabe Landeskog update from your perspective. I mean, where's he at now?
Rehab. I know that sounds glib, but that's the truth. He continues. He's in the gym right now as we speak, grinding, and that's really all I know. This is not, as you guys know, this is not do X, Y, and Z, and you're back in 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 months shoulder surgery. This is as far from that as you can get. So everything is going well, but we still got some work to do.
Evan, then Eric.
It's been rare for you guys to have this many roster spots open when camp starts, and you had 3 open forward spots, and it's been filled, and Jared said we just need 3. Are you guys happy with the 3 that stepped up, and I guess the guys beyond that, are you guys happy with kind of the performance of everybody? Kind of.
I tell you tomorrow night. Preseason's preseason, right? And at the level, we all know the level's going to get jacked up significantly here. So Kovalenko, Richie, Sam Alinsky, Ivan, what they've done is they've put themselves in a position to start to earn real trust in the regular season. And that's not easy to do. It's preseason is one thing, doing the right things in the summer is a prerequisite to have a chance to continue to earn an NHL jersey in a regular season game. So we're excited to see what they can do. They've certainly put in a lot of good work. They all played well in the preseason. But now that we all know the intensity and the 2 points are real. So it's going to get jacked up. We're certainly excited to see how it shakes out. And as you know, we're always looking to get better. So if they can help us get better, then we're ecstatic.
Eric.
Last time we spoke to you here, you were talking about how over the summer you were going to look for those low AAV contracts, and last year you tried it with guys like Drouin and Tatar. This year was Shillington and Brandstrom. Obviously, Tatar ended up getting traded 2 months later. Drouin ended up working out. What made you this time around decide before the season begins, before he gets a chance to play in an NHL regular season game, that moving on from Brandstrom was the right choice?
Well, I think the play of Sam Alinsky really elevated and showed us that he was not only a guy that was going to be in the roster, but he's pushing to be in the lineup. And when the opportunity came to make this deal and change the mix on the back end, I think the day before with Ludwig, that opened up this pathway for us to pick up a pick and to sort of clear up our cap certainly in the short run, that's for sure. So that was behind it.
Corey. We've spent months now talking about how there's so much uncertainty going into the season. Just from what is it like as a management's perspective on a season like this, which just seems like unlike anything else you guys have probably faced here, maybe?
It's just hockey, right? At the end of the day, it's hockey. We've done, this group has done a hell of a lot of winning over the last number of years. 3 straight years of 50 wins. That's a lot of winning. That's hard. Is there certain challenges? Yeah, they're obviously, right. You're missing Lehkonen, you're missing Val, you're missing Landeskog. Those are 3 top 6 players. So is the first month going to be a challenge? Yeah, it's going to be a challenge. But we got faith in those guys. We still got a lot of good players in there, and that they believe in themselves, and they know how to win, and they know how to fight through adversity. So. But that's pro sports. You're not always going to have the 22 guys on your roster at any given time, whether it's game 1 or game 82 or playoffs. Stuff happens. So we got to deal with it, and I think we're ready to deal with it.
Rachel, then Ryan.
Going back to those new forwards with Ivan, Kovalenko, Richie, of course, being so young, if you have any conversations with them, what does that look like, or what do you want to make sure these younger players know ahead of their big debut?
Well, I think our coaches do a heck of a job preparing them, number one. I think, as you guys know, the intensity is going to be jacked up tomorrow night in Vegas, 20,000 or whatever it is there. And now guys are, they're playing for real. They're playing for the 2 points. So how they can adjust to that, I think, is going to be key. They're going to be dialed in on systems and their role and that sort of thing. They'll have butterflies that they'll have to, sort of navigate, which is a great thing. But I want them to enjoy it, right? If they're, Ivan's in or Cal's in, it's their first NHL regular season game. It's special. It's an honor to pull on an NHL jersey, and for them, I want them to enjoy it and maybe get a goal or two.
Chris, can you tell us about the decision to bring in Andrew Wilson and just how helpful he's been in these situations, particularly with Val and Gabe and kind of the weirdness there?
He's good. When we lost Biller, we were down an AGM. Most teams have two. Suzanne Borchert and myself were doing the lion's share of that type of stuff, and she's done an incredible job picking this stuff up really well. She's a rising star in our front office, and I think in the league as well. But Andrew brings a wealth of experience. We watch the caps. We have our own cap stuff internally that we build and utilize every single day. But to have an opportunity to bring on somebody with 17 years of experience who's been handling question after question, situation after situation for every team in the league, we just thought it made sense. And once we got the blessing of ownership, it just was round peg, round hole for what we were looking for to augment our front office.
Nick and Jesse.
Through training camp and now getting into the start of the season and the moves that you made just in the offseason, what are you most encouraged by with the start of the year tomorrow? Player-wise, team-wise in general, what's most exciting for you right now?
I think it's hopeful. I think we have a good group. I mean, anytime you have Nathan, McKinnon and Cale Makar and Mikko Rantanen and Devon Taves, and I can name 3 or 4 other guys, Casey Middlestad and Josh Manson and Gorgiev. Like, we feel like we've got good hockey players here. We know our challenges. We know there's injured guys, there's suspended guys currently, but I don't want us to wait for the cavalry. I want us to be ready to go day one with the guys we have, and our expectation is to be able to collect points this first month, because as you guys know, points in game 1 or 4 or 6 are just as important in game 78, 79, whatever. But I think seeing what Casey Middlestad can do in a full year in our system, in our lineup, and as Rachel pointed out, seeing where some of the young guys shape up. Justus Annunen, hoping that he can take a step and take some of the load off of Georgie right from the beginning. I think those are some of the things that I'm excited to see, and certainly hopeful that they'll play out well.
Jesse?
We mentioned Brandstrom just a minute ago, and then last year Ryan Johansson and Tomas Tatar, you guys have shown a willingness to move on from players quickly if you guys don't. And I guess I don't know what the reason is. Why is it that you guys are comfortable doing that? Is that just a product of where you guys are at in the competitive window and understanding what the team needs, or?
I think if it's a situation that makes sense, we're not going to be shy and second guess and worry about, oh, you signed him, it was a bad signing. It's not a bad signing. There was, when we signed Val, there was some chatter that we're blocking young kids. Val helped us win a Stanley Cup. Like, your hockey ops department and your pro scouts, that's their job, is to make strong recommendations. And if you feel it makes you better, I feel that's the obligation to the 23 guys and the coaches, ownership, and our fans to do it. And if it didn't make sense to move any of those guys, we wouldn't have done it. I can assure you that.
2 more. Go here, Evan.
You guys had Pierre Edouard Bellemare in camp. You moved on from him. I guess what did you see or didn't you see from him? And then also, last year, you did the same thing with Kiviranta, but he came back. So is the door still open potentially for him?
I would say no. I would say that it was one of the hardest things we've ever had to do as a staff because of the respect of the player and the person. He's a dynamite human being. We've seen him up close and in person when he was here. we just didn't feel that there was enough separation from what else we had under contract already. That at the end of the day, that probably is what it came down to. I think Billy can still play a role somewhere. We just didn't feel like it was that there was enough separation to go against somebody that was already under contract.
Last two, Eric and Ryan. Seems like, well, actually it doesn't seem. I think this is the third time in 4 or 5 years that you enter the season with your starting goalie in going into the last year of his contract. Before that was obviously Grubauer and Kemper. Is this just the way of the salary cap, where it's just going to be another situation where you get to the off season, see where the Mikko and all these other numbers lie, and then fill in appropriately, or do you see a chance that Georgiev has any kind of extension talks during the regular season?
I never say never on anything. Like the Logan O'Connor situation came together in about 18 hours, so it takes one phone call. But I think we're just excited to get the season started. To see, hopefully, Georgie gets off to a real good start, and those things can take care of themselves. It's not like the trade deadline is next week, or July 1st is 10 days from now. We've got a lot of hockey and a lot of season to be played, and a lot of things to sort out. But certainly cap and those considerations when you're looking forward, that's part of our job. Their job is to win tomorrow and hopefully the next day and the day after that, day to day. We got to take a bigger picture look at things. But Alex has been a really good goalie for us, and we're counting on him to have a big year.
Jared said yesterday Lehkonen has a 5-month checkup at the end of the month. Can you just talk about his timeline, his recovery timeline, where he's at?
Yeah, I think that probably is the timeline. Is that 5-month mark will be key, and then once the surgeon looks at him and says, "Yep, everything's dialed in," now we can sort of kind of hone in on, all right, how much time is he going to need? We got to bump him around a little bit in contact and see how it holds up. So whether it's another week or 8-10 days, that determination will be made at that appointment, which I think is around October 27th or 28th. So we got some time with Lecky, but you got to be careful with that. You don't want him to come back too soon and then undo the fix that was implemented. We'll certainly miss him, but very confident that he's doing really well.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
There. Not going to take a ton of time to go through it, but there are a few talking points that I want to run through before we kind of move on to some other news of the day.
I know. I
don't want to say it yet. We'll say
I'm an avoidant person, and so I'm trying to put off talking about it.
Meghan, let's start at the beginning of the CMAC presser. Says that he is not concerned about getting a deal done with Mikko Rantanen. Says he doesn't bother him to extend into the season here. It feels a little bit like that Draisaitl deal may have had an impact on getting this over the finish line.
Yeah, maybe some last minute things that were added and adjusted. I don't think it's anything that throws it off the rails completely. I think what gave me confidence in his answer is that he doesn't have concern about this dragging on into this season. And for a team that has so much distraction from uncertainty, that's the last thing that they need. I think both parties have extreme motive to get it done sooner rather than later. And that's still my feeling. I haven't had concern. I know that you haven't had that concern either.
Yeah. I thought it was, he said he's not going to comment on it every day till it gets done, which again is not off, not unaligned with what Mikko Rantanen said when we talked to him a couple weeks ago at the start of camp, that it's going to get done when it's going to get done. But to your point, they sound confident in that. To me, I thought the most significant part of this availability was the conversation about Val. He says that Val is doing well. And I guess let's start with he's coming back this month. So it sounds like they have started this process. They've got travel plans with Val. We're still unsure. He said that they're still getting clarity on the reintegration process, was how he put it. This sounds to me, Meghan, like he is on his way back into town. And he'll likely, I think, be meeting with the team well in advance of any type of getting back on the ice or even maybe even getting into the gym.
Absolutely. I think that some of it will be him getting into his own physical routine here in Colorado, first to start conditioning and getting season ready, being around the team in some unofficial capacity, because this is unprecedented. So even when he was brought back from the program the second time around, it was still a little unclear, like, what practicing with the team but not cleared to return to play was. That distinction already was a little confusing.
Yep.
I think that's the confusion that we're in right now, and this is an even different situation. Like, okay, he's coming back to Denver. What can he do in an official capacity and otherwise?
Yeah. Because we've speculated, I think, even on this show of, okay, well, he can come back. Is there anything stopping him from renting ice at Family Sports and just going out there and skating as a, just a private citizen? Probably not, but probably can't use any, team, can't use the team locker room. Likely can't have, someone like Toby Peterson out there who usually works with guys who are trying to get back. So I found the fact that he's not flying back into town on November 16th,
Right.
which is when he's eligible to return. He'll be back here in just a couple weeks. And I think some of that healing process has to start. And what I thought was interesting, I thought it was a great question you asked, because again, as there's been a lot of words about Val Nichushkin since this all happened. Players immediately after, Chris MacFarland, Gabe Landeskog at the end of the season. We talked to players a few weeks ago, but now he's 2 weeks away from coming back. So I thought it was good that you asked him, like, what do you need to see as the GM? What do you want to see from Val Nichushkin? And I thought his answer was interesting, that he doesn't need to see anything, but that he felt that the team, the players, needed to see that Val was healthy and that he understands the hurt the team went through the last 2 years in the playoffs.
I think it's an interesting distinction for the GM to make, because he was clear in saying that he can't speak on behalf of the team and it's better suited for them to talk about that themselves. So the fact that he can say that much is very revealing. And I know this isn't groundbreaking stuff that people couldn't have predicted themselves, but it is important to note too that Val being healthy is different from Val saying he's healthy.
Yes.
They want Val to truly, genuinely be healthy.
That's great.
And I think the word that stuck out to me was addiction. He talked very specifically about the challenges of dealing with somebody who is dealing with addiction or substance abuse issues. And I think that there's been murkiness around the nature of what has taken Val away from the game these last few times. It's pretty clear in more certain terms what Val has been dealing with, why it's been a difficult thing to contain or predict. And I think it is important for there to be some accountability and ownership. And that is where the comment about needing to acknowledge the hurt that was caused in these playoffs is important too, because there's an element of accountability that is very necessary there. People familiar with addiction recognize why that's so important too. It's not just because they got their feelings hurt. It's important for Val's recovery,
right,
that he takes ownership of what happened.
It's a great point, Megan, and ownership is a word that was used to me. Someone who's familiar with what's going on there in that locker room I talked to over the summer, that was the word they used. That the group wants to see him own up to what happened and take responsibility for it. And so I think that's a great call out about, not only is it that the players want it, it's a necessary step
For Val.
And for there to be healing. Because I think Jared Bednar made a good point at Media Day at the beginning of the season of, as much as there is stuff that Val needs to do, there's got to be forgiveness and there's got to be healing, and you've got to want to get to that point. And I think a lot of that starts with what you were talking about there. And there was one other thing that you just said that spurred a thought for me about Val.
I know it stuck out to you, the distinction of the doctors from the program.
Yes.
Felt he was clear to return the first two times around.
Yes.
So I think there is that component of Val can say or do things exactly how he has these last few times that sound good and look good on paper.
Yes.
But the true test of whether or not he is genuinely making progress forward, I think, is the accountability component. That will be what is different and separates from these last few times.
You're 100% right. It is because, again, that's the sense that I've been given, that these last 2 times it's been kind of like oh man,
Just get out there and play.
right. But no, this is very different. And the other part that, again, I don't necessarily know if I find it interesting. I don't even know if I was surprised by it, but it was the no comment on the videos, the interviews that came out. Of course, they were recorded before the incident in the second round of the playoffs this season. They were recorded before that. But Corey Massasak from the Denver Post did ask about any thoughts on conflicting stories in this series of interviews that Val Nichushkin did. And we did get a no comment from Chris MacFarland. Again, don't know if that would be surprising to anybody. Just thought it was of note. Asked about a Gabe Landeskog update. He said Gabe's in rehab, meaning he's continuing to work back, towards it. Am I looking too much into this? Did it seem less optimistic this time than maybe the last updates that we've gotten? Or am I way overanalyzing that?
I think what's happened, I don't have any concern. Like, even the tone of Landeskog at the alumni event was like a little more somber than I thought it was going to be. I think that this is some course correction that's happening, because the early report, a few months before camp opened, or maybe a month before camp opened, where Bednar said he'll be back in the early season. I think people got really excited about that. I think you even addressed this, that maybe the expectation that was set based on that report was too ambitious, and this is the course correction. Like, it is positive and there is genuine optimism, because everything we've been told through this point points to tests that have evaluated Gabe's progress in a positive way. So that's not made up, but let's not get carried away and suggest that he's going to make an appearance in October. Maybe not even as soon as November. That was the time frame I had originally targeted. Maybe that was all a little too ambitious to put it in even the first 2 months of the season. And that's the course correction to tamper expectation, because I think it got a little high.
And you do wonder if stuff like that, given the type of injury that Gabe's trying to come back from, Chris MacFarland points out, this isn't your average, shoulder cleanup. We'll see on this date and you're good to go. Like, no, this is not necessarily, it's not an experimental surgery, but it's experimental in the sense of you're trying to come back and be a professional athlete in a contact sport. So I think that's a good assumption.
Evan Rawal pointed out Lonzo Ball and how he is getting into games, but very limited sheltered minutes and not doing back-to-backs. I think that still gives me optimism, though, that a return to play plan is still possible for Landeskog too. The nature of the sport's very different as well, but we can still kind of look to that and not just entirely lose hope either.
Well, in a return to play plan, I think that's maybe something that fans should start wrapping their heads around now, is that when Gabe comes back, odds are there's probably going to be some minute limitations at first. Maybe we'll healthy scratch him, scratch him in a few games here and there to keep, so a return to play plan might also be something that Avs fans should start
definitely
wrapping their head around. Moving on, Sam Malinsky.
A moment of silence for Malinsky Nation.
Seriously,
this is your time, people.
This is your time. Straight from Chris MacFarland's mouth, the play of Sam Malinsky is what opened the door for them to make the Brandstrom deal.
It's huge.
It's huge. And he said it became apparent immediately that Sam Malinsky wasn't just vying for a roster spot. No. This is a guy that's in the lineup. His play was to that level. Again, this goes back to the conversation we had maybe yesterday, maybe Friday. I'm done with the Avs can't develop players conversation. This is a sign of a player that you brought in, developed, and just stole an NHL job from someone that I think a lot of people just penciled in ahead of Malinsky when the Avs signed him.
Yeah, I don't want to make the focal point of this Brandstrom and the preseason that he had. I think the hype around Malinsky is very real. What he accomplished just in the short span of offseason through now, because he looked great in NHL games last year, but he looks like an NHL regular
Mhm.
in that short amount of time. Among actual NHL regulars, he beat one out for a job. And it's such an impressive feat. It requires so much mental fortitude because imagine his reaction when he first saw Brandstrom and then the Shillington signing, right? It probably felt a little like the task ahead was going to be quite challenging.
What the hell?
And I don't doubt that any professional athlete has to have a really healthy dose of self-confidence. So I don't think he was super down on himself, but that still has to be such a challenge to see through and set that aside and still believe in yourself. And then he gets to, these are the fruits of his labor. Like he made that happen.
When I was seeing those signings come in, that's what was going through my mind. I said, if I was Sam Malinsky, I'd be sitting there going, what the hell? Why are you bringing in all these guys? I thought that was my spot. And for him to come out and take that spot
Right.
in a way that was forceful enough that the Avs said, shit, we don't even need this guy. We don't need someone who we thought would maybe be like a break glass in case of emergency. If Sam, we don't even need him. I thought that was a ringing, massive endorsement of Sam Malinsky.
He could have looked at that and said, okay, I'll be the 7th or 8th man.
Mhm.
And instead he said, I'm going to be the 5th guy.
Mm-hmm. I think he's 5 right now.
I do too. I feel pretty confident and comfortable saying that.
And again, the part that I thought was noteworthy was when Chris MacFarland was asked about the Brandstrom deal, the first name out of his mouth was Sam Malinsky.
Yeah.
So
huge endorsement.
Huge endorsement there. From there, he talked a little bit about Andrew Wilson, new AGM, and pointed out, which you and I joked about yesterday on the emergency pod, this is a guy that was brought in specifically to help them navigate situations like what they dealt with yesterday.
It's a good thing we didn't panic.
I don't think we panicked. That was just what is going on. Let's get to the bottom of this. And it sounds like all we got to do to avoid that having in the future is go out and hire a 30-year veteran of the NHL Central Registry.
I was thinking we could just befriend Andrew Wilson.
Perfect. Text him, hey, what the hell? What was that? But Andrew Wilson is here because Chris MacFarland pointed out he's been dealing with those types of situations all over the league with every single team for decades now. So bringing him in to be part of the organization, it's not quite buying cap friendly, but it's same type of thing to have a better understanding of what's happening there. Last couple here, the Pierre-Edouard Bellemare conversation, you could tell when he said that was one of the hardest things they've ever had to do, you could tell he meant that.
Yeah. Like I tweeted it out and it felt like it still lacked the context of the full quote because Chris MacFarland can't talk about the difficult decision that the staff had to make without mentioning Bellemare's character.
Mhm.
And I think that's an important part in it. What I also liked was the nod that he could probably play a role somewhere else. I thought it was implied in this league. That is not saying that is his next move. I think it did make sense for him to consider some overseas options as well. Not because I don't think he can play in the NHL somewhere. It's just, I think the league feels more competitive this year than ever. Just some of the players I've seen on waivers, on PTOs, it is players that I just a season ago considered full-time NHLers. So I don't think it's an indictment of Bellemare or where he's at. I think it was a great call out though that in that forward option battle, he just didn't separate enough. It's not even that he did a bad job. It was just too neutral.
Well, and to the point that he made was not only was it too neutral, but it was too neutral to justify an additional contract.
It's a great point.
Again, not that any of those guys that you're talking about him competing with are that expensive, nor would he have been, but it's one more contract. It's one more check to write. So that was interesting. He mentioned kind of all in the same breath. I want to talk about two different things here that they're looking at Annunen to take on a bigger workload right out of the gate. And I thought the Georgiev contract conversation was answered without being answered. To me, that all but confirmed Georgiev is not coming back next year.
We've talked about it before too. That doesn't reflect poorly on Georgiev outright. It actually could mean that he plays so well that he just isn't an affordable Avs starter specifically. They have this formula for how they'd like to set it up. They've invested a lot into their D pipeline. It'd be hard to imagine, even if they could give Georgiev that kind of money, I don't think they're willing to do term because of how they've constructed their pipeline for D. And so even to that end, I just don't think it would appeal to Georgiev at the end of the day, even if he has a lights out season, which I hope he does. I still believe he's capable of as well. But I just think that the way things have trended, it looks unlikely.
Looks unlikely. And there was no kind of like, we're waiting to engage in conversations, I'm with you. It seems unlikely. Last thing, just really quick, and there's not much to say on it, but Arturi Lehkonen sounds like has an appointment on Chris MacFarland said either the 27th or 28th to get that shoulder evaluated to see if he's cleared to get back into that pink jersey and out of the red.
We were so close.
So close.
No, I'm so glad they gave us some clarity, though, because he was another who the way that they talked about him up until recently was as if opening night, he might be an option.
Possibly.
Home opener, maybe. October 27th, 28th as the 5-month checkpoint. And then from that point, there could be a little bit of additional time before he plays is actually different. And I wish they had just led with that.
I'm with you. Like you said, there's not much to say on that. Yeah, that would have been nice for them to lead with.
Not worried about him. Too. It's all according to plan. We were just clued in.
We just found out about the plan today. All right, I think that'll do it for what we got out of CMAC. Are you ready?
Okay, rip the Band-Aid off.
Sean Behrens. I mean, pretty shocking news. This morning, we were up there just at the end of last week. Saw him out there buzzing around. Looked good. Sounds like over the weekend was involved in some type of collision or something like that at Eagles practice. Done for the year with a knee injury, Megan. All jokes aside, DU alum, all of that. As much of a, just a bummer it is that a player's missing a season. I mean, just devastating given where Sean Behrens was at, the season ahead that he was staring down, first full pro year, leadership role with the Eagles, and after making such a strong impression at Avs camp. It's
just his college career, was a little bit interrupted by injury. Thankfully, it was something that could be addressed mostly in the off season, but it did affect, between freshman and sophomore year, some of the play. And so I'm just so sad to see another pivotal moment in his path to the NHL interrupted. I don't doubt his capabilities of getting there. It just delays the timeline a little bit, but he's already been on such a patient path. I hate to see it happen because I liked his rookie faceoff and I loved his Avs camp. I think the things that have stood out, especially because of the type of player he is how strong he looks. So it's sad to see it crushed by an injury in practice before the season gets off the ground, because I was excited to see what he did with the opportunity that he would be inevitably forced to earn. To his credit, D's back end was actually pretty stacked. So he had to still fight for his time there. It wasn't just inherently given to him because he's an Avs draft pick. And so similarly, I think he's actually been faced with that challenge before. He would have had a similar one in Loveland. They weren't going to just roll out the red carpet for Behrens.
Right.
Wyatt Ahmet's still up there, Keaton Middleton, Jack Ashawn. And so now Jacob McDonald. Sean Behrens was going to have to fight for that spot to prove that it belonged to him. And I was so excited to see it. It's just delayed a little bit further. I hope that, he has all the support around him to get back so that he can make a good bounce back after this. I hope too, like in seeing what Richie has been able to do after his shoulder injury, that there's hope and optimism around what he can accomplish when he does return. But I'm just devastated for him.
It's a total bummer. Like it's a massive bummer on so many levels. For Sean Behrens, the player, Colorado Eagles, for the Avs organization, and then for Sean Behrens, the person. I mean, it's just you think the
setbacks are behind me.
Right. I'm here. I made it. I'm a pro. Showed really well in Avs camp. Again, no one was expecting him to come out and set the world on fire and, make the team out of camp. So that, that wasn't what was expected of him, but he played well enough. He was not part of the first round of cuts or anything like that. And then, when we just talked to Aaron Schneekloth last week, you and I went up there and he talked about, we're looking at Sean Behrens to be a leader. first-year pro, but played a long time at DU. He was a leader there, a lot of experience. It just sucks that all the good that we saw out of him the last 2 weeks is now on pause for the entire season.
I
That's the
hate
part
that it's the
sucks.
whole year. That's pretty big.
That's huge. And it does make you a little bit worried about what the injury is, because that's a long time. Like, we see that in the NFL from time to time, done for the year, out of training camp. It's like, but that's a pretty short season, 4 months, whatever. You're talking season hasn't even started, Meghan. You're talking an 8-9 month injury here. Just brutal. Any last thoughts on Sean Barron's and that injury? No? All right. Let's move on. I won't make you talk about it anymore. Quickly, we'll just touch on this briefly. Opening night roster is now officially set after a myriad of moves, both paper transaction and otherwise. Chris Wagner still hanging around, which I find a little bit interesting. He was out at practice today, despite having cleared waivers. I think this is a roster that's got an uphill climb to be among the league's elite in the first month or two as they wait for reinforcements. But, Meghan, I think this is a pretty good team, even out of the gates, given the circumstances that are facing them. I think they've done a good job of making the best of a not ideal situation, given how much gymnastics they had to do this summer.
That was my among my favorite comments from MacFarland. That was sort of reinforced by the very interesting McKinnon interview. But I love the comment about not waiting for the cavalry to come. That the team should push to win out the gate. And I think McKinnon's attitude around it was different, but it was a similar, like, well, we don't have these guys. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I do think that it's going to be interesting how McKinnon specifically can be a constant in a lineup where there is so much uncertainty. How can the players who do represent then what is familiar and what is known, how can they embrace that role? And that's not, to JJ's point, for them to overextend themselves. You've been awfully quiet today.
Yeah, JJ hasn't had much to say today.
No, but to embrace his concern, well, how are they going to utilize these top guys? I don't think it should be overextension territory, but they should push to win. I think there's going to be some rust and there's going to be some silliness. I'm not expecting it to be a perfect product out the gate either, but I'm also looking forward to enjoying the ride. All right, well, what does the Kaurichi Kovalenko middle stat line do?
It's and you've got an opportunity for some fun surprises, right?
Ivan.
And it's just I think that's how the Avs are going to try to embrace it, is we're going to have fun with this. But I'm with you. I wanted to ask Nate about it, but I decided not to.
He was in a silly, goofy mood today.
He wasn't feeling the scrum too much, but I wanted to ask him if he was putting any additional, not pressure, but feeling like he needed to take a little bit more on himself in this first month. But like I said, chose not to.
Another day. We have all year.
Yeah.
And we'll be in Vegas.
And we'll be in Vegas tomorrow for morning skate, for post game, for all that good stuff. So, we'll be bringing all that to you guys. But Meghan, you know what time it is. It's time for our predictions. And you've already given them, so you don't have to be worried.
Oh, God.
This is just division predictions.
And are we just doing Central?
No, you've already given them all. They're all already loaded
but
up.
I don't want to have to publicly address some of the predictions I made.
Oh, we're publicly addressing
the Metro division. I just don't think.
Well, we're going to talk about all the divisions, and you know what? Let's go ahead and start with the Metro.
Great.
We'll start with the Metro division. There it is, Meghan.
No comment.
Look, when this one went out, I specifically went and retweeted saying, what I love about it is that all three of our rankings are vastly different, and that should tell you everything you need to know about this division. I think the Rangers are a really good team. I think the Devils look poised to be better. Carolina has been consistent. After that, what is this division?
I think what I'm most embarrassed by is how highly I ranked the Islanders. And it's not that I don't stand by them making a push to be competitive. I just don't know if 2 is really where my heart is. But I think a Patrick Waugh coached regular season team is a good one. That it's as simple as that. I believe in the goaltending.
Yep.
And I think that there's some players like a Barzell who are just kind of due for a little bit of a breakout.
And as you pointed out, both on this show, and then you and I, the three of us talked about yesterday, there's a lot, like, the competitive balance, I feel like, has never been more balanced.
I agree.
There's more parity in the league right now than ever. And there's a lot of flawed teams out there. And I think we are poised to see a couple teams make some surges here. So that's why I don't think the Islanders at 2 in this division is that crazy. In the same way that I've got the Flyers at 3. I've got the Flyers getting an automatic playoff bid, the top 3 in the division. I think either way you slice this here, you're looking for a non-playoff team to make a run into the top 3. And it's just an interesting division. We don't have to spend any more time on it, but there we go. What do you want to do next?
Anyone. That was probably the worst one that I felt weirdest about.
Let's stick out east. We'll go Atlantic. Here's our Atlantic division predictions. Consistent at the top. The Florida Panthers look like the best team. You're now shaking your head. Do you disagree with your own rankings?
No. I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it.
Oh, okay. Florida up at the top. I think Tampa is going to be better than they've been the last couple of years. I think they're kind of moving on from that last generation a little bit. I think they're exciting. You got Detroit making a little bit of a jump here. Is that a sleeper playoff team for you, Megan?
I mean, when you get down below it, it's because I don't believe in those teams as much.
Okay.
More so that.
So I'm just realizing for the audio only folks, Megan has for the Atlantic division, Florida at 1, Boston at 2, Toronto at 3, Detroit at 4, Tampa at 5, Montreal at 6, Buffalo at 7, Ottawa rounding things out there. Then I have Florida, Toronto, Tampa, Boston, Buffalo, Ottawa, Detroit, Montreal. Again, this is another team that you have several clubs that you're looking at. Can they make a step? Can they take a step, not make a step?
I think Detroit's due to take a step. They've added interesting pieces over the last, not so much this offseason, but like the past 2, that I think that should yield better results. Not in the immediate, but I think it's time to start reaping the benefits of that.
I wonder about them. Did they spend too much money in the middle and bottom part of their lineup?
I felt that way initially. Like, I still don't know where I believe in their like playoff projections, for example. Just because of how they're constructed, I felt like it was just trying to get the best player available and not really evaluating fit.
Yes.
So I still feel that way. But a Stamkos-less Tampa Bay Lightning, I think, is going to need some direction. And
yeah. I'm wondering how much of a pop Jake Gensel can give him.
It's not nothing.
It's not nothing. And I'm just wondering a little bit of a refresh there. And I also, you know, from doing shows with me for years, I just don't bet against Andrei Vasilevsky. I just don't do it.
I like that take. I really like that goaltender.
It's just, I just won't do it. Okay, let's move over to the West here. And let's start with what I do think is probably the weakest division in the NHL, the Pacific. This is one that I feel is very top heavy. I took Vegas at the top of my Pacific division because every single time people start counting out Vegas, they do something ridiculous. So my Pacific division rankings, I got Vegas at 1, Edmonton at 2, Vancouver at 3, Seattle at 4, LA at 5, Anaheim at 6, Calgary 7, San Jose 8. Megan is Edmonton 1, followed by Vancouver, Vegas, LA, Seattle, Calgary, Anaheim, and San Jose. You and JJ had the exact same list for Pacific. Again,
I forgot that we did. That's hilarious. Yeah. Good work.
I saw someone criticizing my rankings that I just don't like the Oilers. No. This has nothing to do with the Oilers. not being at 1. It's just that every time we think Vegas is washed, they pull some shenanigans. They're running Jack Eichel and Tomas Hertl down the middle this year at 1 and 2. You imagine Mark Stone's going back. Alex Pietrangelo is still on that back end. They've revamped in net a little bit. And just Vegas plays such a pesky style. Could be way wrong on that one, but I feel like Vegas could surprise them. No?
I just believe in regular season Edmonton on the heels of this season that they had. Like, this is just regular season predictions. It doesn't really answer for how I feel about these teams in the long run. I believe in Vegas more in the long run.
Then Edmonton, interesting.
I do, but I also worry that their depth has taken maybe too big of a toll. Adding Tomas Hertl is great, but I don't know that we've seen enough sample size of that for me to really see if that fills the holes left by some of the depth pieces that they've lost. And I do think the revamp to the goaltending is just a question mark.
Totally. It's something different.
It is different.
It's definitely different. Okay, let's wrap things up with the Central Division here. And this is actually new. These have not been pushed out yet. Or maybe they have, Chloe. I don't know if these have gone out on socials yet. No, they have not yet. So you're getting a first look. Breaking news. And like you said, Megan, these are not where I think that we'll be on November 1st. This is where I think we're going to end up at the end of the season. So, Megan, I'll start with your list here. Central Division, you have the Avs finishing at 1, Dallas 2, Nashville 3, Winnipeg 4, Minnesota 5, Utah 6, Chicago 7. Wow. And the Blues 8. Love it. Love it. I have Colorado at 1, Dallas at 2, Nashville 3, followed by Utah, Winnipeg, Minnesota, St. Louis, Chicago. And JJ has Dallas winning the Central Division, followed by Colorado, then Nashville, Winnipeg, Minnesota, Utah, St. Louis, Chicago. You and I are in alignment. I think in the marathon that is the 82-game season, I think the Avs edge out Dallas as they get that roster back to what you hope would be full health for the Avs, where I'm clearly different than everyone else is. I'm a much bigger believer in Utah than the two of you guys. I just think that can only wait for so long for a team to take a step, and I think the excitement of being in Utah is going to push them over the edge.
I've liked what they've been building towards for a while now, so I'd be willing to entertain them pushing even higher than where I have them ranked now.
We all have the same top 3. Ours is the exact same. JJ's is just a difference of 1 and 2, which to me tells me that I think we all feel fairly confident in the best 3 teams in this division. Nashville got so much better.
I don't see
who
with Winnipeg, because I don't know how much Nashville has been overhyped for what they've done this offseason. Like, we have yet to see how that actually plays out.
They're becoming the new best over 35 team very quickly.
So it's not that Nashville at 3 is unrealistic. I put them there, but I could just as easily see Winnipeg there.
You want to know what I find interesting? There's a lot of Canadian media that has the Jets missing the playoffs altogether, let alone being top 3. I read a bunch of stuff in the last couple of days. There are a lot of folks who think that they're going to struggle this year. And it made me question myself a little bit. I was like, am I not paying enough attention to what's happening in Winnipeg? What's going on there?
Winnipeg.
They don't like Winnipeg.
Honestly, there's turmoil. Like, players and rumors of leaving every year. It persists. Coaching changes. It just, there's a good product there in terms of some of the talent on the top end that's there. Obviously, Hellebuck, and that makes it hard to bet against them.
Yep.
But there is some component I can't put my finger on, because, you hear different things like the locker room is toxic, it's the coach, blah, blah, blah. I don't know that I'm convinced it's those things, but I can't put my finger on what.
Well, to your point about it feels like it's always that the locker room's toxic, the coach is bad. Paul Maurice leaves and 15 minutes later wins a Stanley Cup. So it wasn't him. I know he hasn't been there in a couple of years, but like, to your point, it seems like everyone's having a hard time putting their finger on what it is about the Jets.
Right. Like, I'm not in that room, but I did not get the sense that it was super toxic either. So I
Well,
don't know.
And then even more to that point, on top of that, it was Evander Kane. Oh, it was this player. Oh, no. Now Scheifele doesn't want to be here. No, he does want to be here. So, and it's just like, we've talked before about like teams needing to go through quiet stretches. The Winnipeg Jets could just benefit from like winning some hockey games.
They made a little bit of noise last year, and that's maybe why I have them like, okay, what do you do now?
And I also wonder if on the reverse side of that, because you're looking at it as from the standpoint of, all right, you impressed last year. How do you build on that? And I think there's a lot of Canadian media that's probably looking at it as, yeah, you looked good, then you got your ass kicked. So they've kind of gone right. So they've gone the opposite direction. But I think this is an interesting division. I find it super interesting that you've got St. Louis. I mean, we all have them in the bottom two, but is this more believing in Chicago or not believing in St. Louis?
Super not believing in St. Louis. And I'll pump, Chicago up in a second, but they've been complacent. I just don't know what they've done to get better. Whereas with Chicago, there's upside you can get excited around. It's an uphill battle, but at least there's hope around what Bedard can do to reignite that franchise. Whereas St. Louis, I don't know what to be excited about.
You're totally right. You didn't love those offer sheets?
No, that's what I'm saying. That's it.
that was
the bottom of the division you go.
And that was the most exciting part of it, was watching the offer sheets.
The drama of it all,
right?
yeah.
All right. Well, so there you go. There's our standings predictions for this season. I refrained from doing too much Stanley Cup MVP type predictions at this point in the year before we've seen anyone even play a game. So there you go. There are our standings by division predictions. Megan, there's one thing we need to wrap the show up with today. And that was something that we were pushing this morning on Twitter. I was going to say announcing, but announced wasn't necessarily the right word. We reached out to Adrian. You guys know her better as at Guffy Chan on Twitter. And I believe on Instagram as well.
Yes.
Same handle. She organized all of the Stand with Naz, really that whole thing. A couple of years ago in the second round, after Nazem Kadri was receiving death threats and had to have police stationed outside of their hotel in St. Louis, Adrian rallied really the entire Avalanche and hockey community behind the Stand with Naz movement, printed off a bunch of signs that were then distributed at Ball Arena ahead of warmups to show their support for Nazem Kadri. So we partnered with her to try to do our small, teeny tiny little part in honoring the Gaudreau brothers. And I'll let you kind of take it from there.
Yeah. I think it's appropriate in seeing that they will be opening at home against the Columbus Blue Jackets. This has shaken the whole of the hockey community, especially that organization at this time. And I think the fan bases, they get ranked. This fan base is the worst. This one is the worst. But I think when it comes to matters like this, it's all united. It's one family who just loves this sport more than anything. And so when one hockey family is hurting, the whole family is hurting. And I just wanted to utilize everybody here to see that shown within the Avs fan base, because I think it's a good one. I think there's some great fans, and I just think seeing that kind of support is so meaningful.
It was something that when we realized, again, because there's so much that goes on around the start of a season. We did a show here. We walked through the schedule and things like that. But, as you're getting ready for the season to start, and then especially once the stuff with Johnny Gaudreau happened, we weren't really thinking about stuff. But as soon as you and I realized, oh my goodness, the first game at home is against the Columbus Blue Jackets, who every game for them is difficult this year. Like, we saw it a bunch in preseason, and I'm sure we'll see it a lot at the start of the year and in buildings that the Blue Jackets go into, where people are going to acknowledge Johnny Gaudreau and what happened and all of that. But the Blue Jackets don't have that luxury of acknowledging it and then,
just moving
trying to move on.
Yeah.
it'll be every game is going to be painful. Every time they walk into the locker room and see that his stall is still there, it's going to hurt. And when we realize that, like you said, it's something that we looked at as not media, not people that cover the Avalanche or anything like that, but as members of the hockey community. And so we wanted to do make just a small little gesture to help try to be part of the healing of the hockey community and the celebrating of Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau. So if you head on over to the Guerilla Sports Twitter, you can find a couple different posts there with an image that we will be printing out, and we will be there before the game on Saturday to pass them out front of Ball Arena. We'll send you guys, we'll put out some more details on where you can find us. We'll be there passing out. It's really it's a beautiful image drawn by Adrian. That's Johnny Gaudreau in half Flames, half Blue Jackets jersey, hugging Matthew in the Boston College jersey. We'll be handing those out. We've also got links to a couple of PDFs that you can just print off at home if you're wanting to bring it from home. One has some text on it that Adrian dropped in. The other is just blank if you wanted to add your own message. You could also go to gorillasports.net. We have an article, a beautiful article that Meghan wrote, just talking a little bit about everything that we're saying right here, and a little bit about Adrian, who drew the photo. And my favorite part of the article, Meghan, is what you have there at the bottom. This horrific tragedy stems from a completely senseless act and something that didn't need to happen. Someone who was drunk got behind the wheel and took 2 lives, shattered families and broke the hearts of thousands, if not millions. And so Meghan goes into long detail about your options, and especially if you're going to the game Saturday, how you can get home, services that are offered around Denver and beyond to make sure that you aren't ever getting behind the wheel when you're drunk and leading to something like this again. So I highly encourage everyone to go check it out. Like I said, gorillasports.net, or you can go to the Guerilla Sports Twitter. You can find the images. We'll be there to hand some out. I know Adrian's got buttons and stickers that she's selling, with 100% of that money going towards a couple different causes that Meghan has laid out. Again, also in the article, some areas that you can support.
We narrowed it down to one.
Did we narrow it down? All right. I'm sorry. I wasn't following the thread.
No, it's
this
okay.
morning.
There was, for the people listening, there was a document of multiple causes. We were trying to pick one that would honor both the brothers.
Mhm.
And so we settled on their alma mater of their high school. They were coached by their dad there when they were students and young players themselves. Maddie was coaching there in recent years, and Johnny started a golf tournament that raised funds for underprivileged students to help pay their tuition and scholarships for this high school. So I think that's a great way to honor both of the brothers equally. It's just a small fundraising component, but people can participate in any way just in having the artwork shown at the game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, we'll be there to hand some out. We'll send some more information on the day of where we're going to be stationed, passing some of those out. But if you'd like to get yours printed ahead of time, add a message to yours, or get it blown up real big, whatever, that is available both on the Guerilla Sports Twitter. I believe you tweeted out the links directly as well, Meghan, from your Twitter, as well as at Guffy Chan, Guffychan. Adrian is the artist. You can find the templates to print there yourself as well. And really, we just would love to see, as members of the hockey community, we'd love to see as many folks inside Ball Arena on Saturday with that small gesture, Meghan, but just to show the Columbus Blue Jackets organization, the Calgary Flames organization, and the Gaudreau family that we're all standing with you.
It was a great idea.
It was, I'm happy that we were able to get some stuff pulled off, because, like you said, the hockey community comes together, and I thought this was no better time than to show that. So that's how we'll wrap up today. Meghan and I are off to Vegas. We will be there for everything tomorrow. So we'll be bringing you guys all the coverage starting first thing in the morning, right there at morning skate, all the way through to post game and beyond. And then we're in it. That's it. We're off and running, Meghan. So that should do it. Chloe back there running the board today, absolutely crushing it. As always, making sure that you guys can see us and hear us. That's Meghan Angley. I'm Jesse Montano. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll talk to you from Las Vegas tomorrow for the Avs season opener.
Oh, that's crazy.